Welcome back to another episode of College Football Legends, where we dive deep into the captivating stories of the game's greatest heroes. Whether we admit it or not, there is a hierarchy in the game of college football. We have our elite and powerhouse programs that are always in the hunt for the national championship. Next, we have our middle-of-the-pack programs that are just looking to have a winning season in hopes of playing in a bowl game. Then, we have our poverty programs that are absolutely on life support, and they find themselves scheduled for the powerhouse program's homecoming game or season opener. And the outcome of these games are usually predictable, resulting in a lopsided score, and in most cases they're absolutely boring to watch. We refer to these teams as cream puffs or cupcakes. They usually serve as a tune-up game for the powerhouse program before they enter the more challenging part of the season. On the rare occasion, these underdogs do the absolutely unthinkable and play outside of their minds, taking down their heavily favored opponents. So in this episode, we're continuing our 5-part series of the top 5 most shocking, memorable, improbable, and mind-blowing upsets within the game of college football. The USC Trojans have had a long history of success, spanning over several decades, winning multiple national championships, and several former Trojans winning the coveted Heisman Trophy as the nation's most outstanding player. There was about a 5-year span from about 2003 to 2007 where the USC Trojans were virtually unstoppable, with 3 Heisman Trophy winners, 2 claimed national championships, and a host of future first-round NFL draft picks. The 2006 season, the Trojans had an impressive 11-2 record, capping it off with a Rose Bowl victory. Going into the 2007 season, they were heavily favored to win the national championship, and every opponent on their schedule had them circled in an attempt to knock them off their pedestal. With a stacked, talented roster and championship hopes, this 2007 Trojan team was about to make history. For the wrong reasons. If you were to look at the Trojans' 2007 schedule and predict who would be a threat to their national championship hopes, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't pick the Stanford Cardinal, a team in the previous season who finished last in their conference with a miserable 1-11 record. In addition, hiring their new head coach Jim Harbaugh, who was taking his very first job at the Division I level. There were teams on that 2007 schedule that had a legitimate chance at giving the Trojans headaches. However, the Stanford Cardinal was not one of them. Or so we thought. Setting the stage for this early October matchup, USC was undefeated, and they were led by preseason All-American, and one of my favorite names to say out loud, quarterback John David Booty, and a host of future NFL draft picks on the defensive side of the ball, such as Brian Cushing, Ray Maualuga, Puluka Mayava, and All-American safety Taylor Mays. On the other hand, Stanford had only 1 win on their record, along with blowout losses at the hands of UCLA, Oregon, and Arizona State. And to make matters worse, their starting quarterback was hospitalized due to chronic seizure disorders, and they were forced to start backup Tavita Pritchard, who had only played in a total of 3 snaps in his entire college career. Multiple gambling and sportbook platforms had factored these variables and predicted that their #1 USC Trojans would be a 40-point favorite over the Stanford Cardinal. To date, this is the largest point spread between 2 teams within the power conferences. In today's video, we're going to break down this game and discuss exactly what went wrong for the USC Trojans and what exactly went right for the Stanford Cardinal. And remember, if you like this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode of College Football Legends. As the game kicks off, Stanford has the very first offensive possession, and as predicted, they struggled to really make any headway against this stout USC defense. On a 3rd down and 9 play, Tavita Pritchard rolls out evading the pass rush, but unfortunately he's hawked down by middle linebacker Ray Maualuga, and this sets the tone for the USC defense most of the game. Surprisingly, USC's offense is also having a slow start, yet midway through the first quarter, John David Booty is able to find his tight end Fred Davis, and he takes it all the way inside the 20-yard line. Unfortunately for this offense, they're unable to find the end zone on this particular drive, yet they do settle for a field goal, giving them a 3-0 lead. Stanford's offense continues to struggle, and they give the football right back to this very talented USC offense, and on the ensuing drive, John David Booty hits his receiver Patrick Turner for a spectacular touchdown catch, and it looks like they're about to blow the lid off this game. However, after further referee review, it appears that Turner steps slightly out of the 1-yard line. Fortunately, on the very next play, running back Chauncey Washington punches it in for a 1-yard touchdown. At the collegiate level, we take the extra point try for granted because it has a very high success rate. Yet on this particular play, Stanford makes a spectacular special teams effort and they block the extra point, and this special teams miscue by the USC Trojans will come back to haunt them later on in this game. After that blocked extra point, the score is 9-0, and once again Stanford struggles offensively, giving the football right back to the USC Trojans, and they march down the field in the final minutes of the second quarter. So here we are, it's 4th down and goal, and the USC Trojan offense only needs 1 yard to get in the end zone. John David Booty hands the ball off at right end, and they are stonewalled by the Stanford defensive front, and they fail to convert on 4th down. Despite USC's dominant running attack, the Stanford defense makes a courageous stand, and they stop the Trojans at the 1 yard line, and they're running off the field with a major surge of confidence as they rob USC of a chance of being up 16-0 before the half. As expected, Stanford is trailing at the half. However, what we did not expect is USC's inability to find the end zone, along with Stanford's defense's courageous stand to keep them in a game which many predicted a routine beatdown. Going into the 3rd quarter, that previous failed scoring opportunity would come back immediately to hurt the USC Trojans, as they would commit their very first miscue on offense. It's 3rd down and 1, and everyone in the stadium expected USC to run the football in order to gain the 1st down. Instead, John David Booty throws the ball into the flats, and defensive back for Stanford breaks perfectly on the football, and Austin Yancey intercepts it, returning it for a touchdown. What originally should have been a 16-point lead. Now the score is 9-7, and Stanford has a fighting chance against the #1 team in the country. To make matters worse, on the ensuing offensive possession, John David Booty of USC passes to his reliable tight end Fred Davis, and he fumbles, giving the ball right back to Stanford as they begin to gain a degree of momentum as the game progresses. Thankfully for USC, defensive lineman Cedric Ellis is trying to keep the Trojans in the game as he sacks DeVito Pritchard on a 3rd down play, forcing them to punt. To note, Ellis had a career day in this particular game with 3 quarterback sacks. Despite USC's defense attempts to keep them in the game, offensively, they continue to self-destruct as John David Booty throws yet another interception, this time to Nick Sanchez. Now let's take a quick moment and look at this particular play. As you'll see, John David Booty doesn't have much zip and the ball sails slightly over the receiver's head, making it easy for the defense to intercept. And this is something we'll look back at later on in this particular video. John David Booty was one of the top quarterback prospects coming out of the state of Louisiana, as he was a standout at Evangel Christian High School, and he came from a very strong family background as he was the younger brother of LSU standouts Josh and Abram Booty. With this 6'4" frame and a cannon of an arm, the throws he was making in this particular game was drastically uncharacteristic from what he's originally known for. Conversely, Stanford's quarterback DeVito Pritchard, despite not really making much headway offensively, did a very good job of protecting the football. However, he tried to make a big play in the 3rd quarter after this turnover, and he makes a rookie mistake throwing the ball beyond his arm strength, and the football sails, making it extremely easy for All-American safety Taylor Mays to intercept. It's late in the 3rd quarter, and USC is about to make Stanford pay for this untimely interception, as John David Booty hits his tight end Fred Davis, and he makes a spectacular individual effort and scores on a 65-yard touchdown. And to note, on this particular game, Davis has a career day with 152 yards receiving. At this point in the game, it's 16-7 in favor of USC, and they're not exactly blowing out their opponent, yet they do have a 2-score lead, and Stanford has yet to score an offensive touchdown. The Stanford coaching staff and their starting quarterback understand this situation, and they engineer a spectacular offensive drive, capping it off with an amazing 39-yard touchdown reception, where both the quarterback and the receiver look like All-Americans. And on the very next play, they punch it in the end zone on a 1-yard touchdown run. Stanford's offense finally shows some signs of life, as the score is now 14-16 at the very beginning of the 4th quarter. Many of the experts predicted a 40-point beatdown. Now, the Stanford Cardinals find themselves with a fighting chance against the #1 team in the country, and the Trojans are in a fight of their lives against a team that's only won 2 games in the last 12 months. John David Booty and the Trojan offense immediately answer, as he hits wide receiver Ronald Johnson in stride for a spectacular 48-yard touchdown, making the score 23-14, and it's looking like USC is finally about to put away this pesky underdog. Stanford's offense continues to fight back as DeVito Pritchard shows signs of an elite quarterback, as he's able to continue to march his team down the field. And on this particular drive, they settle for a field goal, cutting away at the lead, making it 23-17. USC has the ball with minutes left to play in the game, and they must achieve at least one of these 2 objectives if they are to ensure victory. First, they need to establish an offensive drive to eat enough time away at the clock, and second, they need to stop turning over the football. If they are able to achieve at least one of these objectives, this would ensure victory for the Trojans. However, if things were to happen that way, I wouldn't be making this video. Damn! In the waning minutes of the final quarter of this game, USC has a slight lead and they have the football. And on this particular play after John David Booty snaps the ball, you can clearly see Stanford's linebacker blitzing, but he's blocked and he falls to the turf. In most cases, that typically takes the player out of this particular play. But with this linebacker's high motor and desire to get to the quarterback, he's able to take down John David Booty for the very costly sack. Despite Stanford being undersized compared to their opponents, they had been successful blitzing on defense and running complicated stunts that confused USC's blocking scheme, getting to the quarterback, and in many cases drastically throwing off John David Booty's timing. With Stanford's relentless pressure on the quarterback, it drastically throws off his timing, and it leads to another untimely interception for the USC Trojans. And you can clearly see that the ball is slightly tipped by the receiver, and local Bay Area product from Pinole, California, linebacker Wapomo Asai makes a crucial interception for his team. To this day, I am still puzzled why the USC offense was trying to shoot the ball down the field in the passing game. With a semi-safe lead, you would think they would try to keep the ball on the ground.
Like 1 yard, you need 1 yard. Run the ball. Run the ball!
However, this is attributed to Stanford's success on defense, as they were able to rattle the mighty Trojan army and force them to mistakes on offense that played right into their hands. As Stanford has one more offensive possession, quarterback DeVita Pritchard is about to make the play of the game and his career. It's 4th down and 20, and there's not entirely too many plays drawn up to be successful in this particular situation. That's when DeVita Pritchard hits wide receiver Richard Sherman on a spectacular 21-yard pass to keep the offense alive. And yes, you heard that right, Richard Sherman. Before his all-pro career in the NFL as a defensive back, he was a standout at wide receiver for the Stanford Cardinal. Despite that spectacular throw and catch from Richard Sherman, the Stanford Cardinal offense failed to convert on those next 3 attempts, and they find themselves in a critical 4th down and goal situation with the game on the line. This is when DeVita Pritchard shows some late-second heroics, and he hits wide receiver Mark Bradford, and he's able to plant 1 foot in the end zone, scoring a critical touchdown, tying the game at 23 apiece. This has officially become a nightmare scenario for the USC Trojans. With less than 45 seconds left to go in regulation, quarterback John David Booty is going to have to make some last-minute heroics if they want to preserve their season in hopes of winning a national championship. With one final attempt in order to escape this embarrassing upset, on the very first play of this particular offensive drive, the quarterback gets sacked with no timeouts left on the clock. This does not help the cause of the USC Trojans. This is absolutely a dire situation for the USC Trojans. It's now 4th down and 17, and like I've said many times in the past, there's not entirely too many plays drawn up to emerge successful in this situation. Naturally, John David Booty desperately throws the ball into double coverage and is intercepted by defensive back Bo McNally as the epic upset is finally complete. After this interception, everyone on the Stanford sideline erupts into pure joy and elation, and everyone in the stands of the Trojan faithful of the LA Coliseum is absolutely stunned as the Stanford Cardinal has taken down the #1 team in the country, despite being a 40-point underdog. There was nothing about this Stanford team that would indicate that they would be capable of pulling off such a monumental upset, knocking off the defending Rose Bowl champions. Despite how poorly that USC had played, they had so many chances to put away their opponent. However, I will not make any excuses for USC, but let's take some time to go over some facts and figures that led to this epic meltdown. The USC Trojan offense was off to a rocky start at the beginning of the game. In addition, failing to convert on that 4th down and 1 play at the goal line truly gave Stanford's defense a huge surge of confidence. I truly believe that would-be touchdown would have been too large of a psychological mountain to climb, because that would have knocked the wind out of their sail, because they would have been trailing 16-0 at the half. Overall, USC played a very solid game on defense, only allowing Stanford 230 yards of offense. In contrast, despite USC's 450 yards of total offense, they committed a total of 6 turnovers, breaking down to 4 interceptions, 1 fumble loss, and a critical turnover on downs at the end of the first half. Prior to the 4th quarter of play, USC had held Stanford to only 7 points, and this was from an interception for a touchdown. Despite this, USC's offensive miscues kept the defense on the field longer than they should have. As that defensive unit grew more fatigued, it led to them allowing 17 points in the 4th quarter, which is a major factor in their undoing. There were rumors, but not confirmed, that USC quarterback John David Booty had suffered a broken bone in his throwing hand, which may have led to some of those bad throws and uncharacteristic interceptions. If this is truly the case, I have to place some of the blame on head coach Pete Carroll for not pulling John David Booty if he was truly injured. In reserve, they had backups in future All-American Mark Sanchez and the former #1 high school recruit in the nation in Mitch Mustaine, and they could have served primarily as a game manager, focusing on the run game. Therefore, they would have committed fewer turnovers. This wouldn't have been the dynamic, prolific offense that we're accustomed to seeing, but I truly believe with fewer mistakes, they would have secured the win and preserved their season. I can't completely bash the USC Trojans because I've got to give props to tight end Fred Davis, who had a career day with 152 yards receiving and a touchdown. And on defense, Cedric Ellis had a total of 3 sacks, keeping his team in the game. Last but not least, we've got to give it to the Stanford Cardinal for putting forth a tremendous effort, in addition to keeping critical mistakes to a minimum. Although no one stood out specifically, there were individuals on that team that really stepped up on offense, defense, and on special teams when it mattered the most. And the stat sheets reinforced this tremendous team effort, as 3 different Stanford Cardinal players scored touchdowns, and 4 different players on defense caught interceptions. This monumental upset all but dashed USC's chances at a national championship, and this particular game occurred before the playoff era, where a loss of this magnitude could pretty much ruin your season. USC would suffer another close loss at the hands of the Oregon Ducks. However, they would go on to have an impressive 11-2 record, winning yet another Rose Bowl. Stanford, on the other hand, this was pretty much the highlight of their season, as they would go on to have an abysmal 4-8 record. However, this was an improvement from the previous season, where they were only 1-11 for the 2006 campaign. Stanford quarterback Tavita Pritchard played the most solid game of his career. Unfortunately, he wouldn't see this type of success after this epic upset, and he would eventually lose his job to a guy that you might have heard of, by the name of Andrew Luck, who will go on to be one of the greatest Stanford Cardinal quarterbacks of all time, and have a stellar career in the National Football League as a member of the Indianapolis Colts. First-year head coach Jim Harbaugh would turn around the Stanford Cardinal into a dominant force in the Pac-12, and he would find success at his alma mater at the University of Michigan, as they would go on to win the national championship for the 2023 season. So I truly believe this particular game revealed some of the cracks in the mighty Trojan Army. After the 2008 season, this program would spin into a decline, which they have yet to recover, and they have since been irrelevant to the national championship picture. I want to know your thoughts about this particular game. Do you think the Stanford Cardinal played absolutely outside of their mind, or did USC self-destruct and hand the game away? There are so many theories. However, I want to hear yours in the comment section below. That's it for today's episode. I really hope you found value in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it just as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode of College Football Legends, where we celebrate the unforgettable players and moments that define the sport we love. Until next time.